I'm joined by Aaron Parnas for this segment. Aaron, we got some big news out of Wisconsin. Break it down for the viewers.
Yeah, for sure. So when we saw, remember in 2023, Wisconsin Democrats came out in full force at the polls and elected Justice Protasewicz to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That completely changed the balance of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And now the court has struck down the Republican Party's gerrymandered legislative maps, which are going to put in play about half the state legislature, making it finally possible for individuals in several districts, both in the Wisconsin House and the Wisconsin Senate, to finally have a voice. For years, these individuals, these Wisconsinites, were kind of stuck under these gerrymandered districts. They didn't have an opportunity to really have free and fair elections, but now they do, thanks to the Supreme Court overturning these gerrymandered maps. It's truly historic what's happening in Wisconsin right now.
And just to give you perspective as to how gerrymandered this state was, in 2022, Tony Evers, who is the Democratic governor, he won re-election with 51.2% of the vote. So statewide was able to get that majority, but Republicans still held 65% of the seats in the 99-person state assembly. Crazy.
It's nuts, Luke. And I think a lot of people forget that a lot of the day-to-day policies that impact our lives are done on the state and local level. So these legislative seats are so important. I mean, whether you're talking about abortion rights, whether you're talking about gun reform, whether you're talking about climate action, whether you're talking about lowering the cost of living. I mean, all of these things happen at the state level. The federal government, we know, doesn't really do anything day to day. It's all up to these state legislatures. And if Wisconsin Democrats are able to flip or even break the supermajority, for example, that Wisconsin Republicans currently have in the state Senate, I mean, that would be a huge win for residents across the state.
And then, Aaron, up until this point, how have these super gerrymandered maps been able to skate past judicial review?
Yeah, so I mean, before 2023, Wisconsin had a conservative Supreme Court. I believe it was a 5-4 split. And it's funny, not many people know, but in Wisconsin, Supreme Court justices are actually elected, and they run in a lot of ways as Republicans or Democrats. So everyone talks about partisanship on the court, but Wisconsin really has that because you have Republican judges running and Democrat judges running. And for a long time, the Wisconsin Supreme Court was a Republican majority. So any attempt to overturn kind of these gerrymandered, these rigged maps in a lot of ways, kind of fell on deaf ears in the courts because ultimately the Supreme Court was never going to overturn it. But last year in 2023, Democrats were able to flip the majority in the Supreme Court by electing Janet Protasewicz to the court. And that really changed everything. And one of the first cases that Justice Protasewicz heard was this case about partisan gerrymandering. And in a 5-4 decision with Justice Protasewicz in the majority, the court threw out the gerrymandered maps.
Incredible. And I do think we spend a lot of time on political shows talking about the negative stories coming out of all these different places. And when it feels like things aren't changing, this is one of those examples of a bunch of people who cared about their democracy, abortion rights, and so many other important issues went out, organized, and worked hard to get Janet Protasewicz elected. Now we're seeing the outcome of that. And then the ramifications that will come of this, a better, more fair map could be massive for the citizens of Wisconsin. And hopefully we'll see similar decisions across the country over the coming years. I want to play a clip of Governor Evers signing this new map into law.
This is an important day and historic day for our state and for every person who calls Wisconsin home. Today is a day that I believe will define our state's future. This will be the first time in over 50 years that Wisconsin will have fair legislative maps enacted through the legislative process rather than through the courts. These maps will take effect immediately after publication and will be in place for the fall elections, providing certainty for candidates and campaigns that are gearing up to circulate nomination papers for this spring. Wisconsin, when I promised I wanted fair maps, not maps that are better for one party or the other, including my own, I damn well meant it. Wisconsin is not a red state. It is not a blue state. Wisconsin is a purple state, and I believe our map should reflect that basic fact. I believe, as I've also said, often said, that the people should get to choose their elected officials, not the other way around. This will become Act 94.
So just one other piece of context as to how big of a shift this is. The new maps are graded by the head of the nonpartisan Princeton gerrymandering project, A. The old maps, F. So this is just a huge shift. And now finally a majority will actually get to decide on the representation.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the big takeaway here is no one wants partisan gerrymandering in their state. We just want a fair map, a fair opportunity to make our voices heard. And that's what's going to happen here in Wisconsin. And for the first time, Wisconsin Democrats could earn a trifecta, already having the governor's mansion and potentially taking back both the House and the Senate. And if you want to support Wisconsin Democrats, there's going to be a link in the description below. Go support them, get to the polls if you live in Wisconsin, and make your voice heard.
Absolutely. Aaron, where can people find you?
On all my social media platforms at Aaron Parnas.